Hey everybody, it's therapist Andy Hogan here. Just went on a bike ride and talked about the question, what is mania and how do I know if I have it or if a loved one has it? And so I'm gonna show you that. I was started with recording in my meta glasses, so it'll start just me riding my bike on the farm. To kind of get this video started, I wanted to ask the question, why is it so hard to tell somebody they have mania or they're being manic? And why is it so hard for them to accept that and to get help for the mania instead of pursuing what they're pursuing, instead of being obsessed with fixing whatever they want to fix? Why is it so hard to recognize mania?
Hey everyone, welcome to the farm. This bike trail is called the farm because it's in Farmington Canyon. I just had a conversation with a close and dear friend where he asked some questions that I think all of you, my friends and followers, might be interested in listening to the answer. So my friend asked the question, what is mania and how do I know if I have it? You know, I made that post before that was 20 minutes long, and I talked about I was manic, moving very close to psychosis, and I think my friend saw it and sparked his curiosity. So let me share what I talked to him about. Bipolar disorder also is called manic depressive disorder. What it is the two extremes, like the North Pole and the South Pole, bipolar, right? Two poles. Two extremes in mood and how you feel. Depression is pretty well known, so I'm not going to go into that. Mania is the other extreme. It's the opposite of depression. Depression, your thoughts are slow, your mood is dark, you feel down, even suicidal. Mania is the high. You have a rush of thoughts. Sometimes they're obsessions. Sometimes they're racing thoughts that are hard to focus on one thing for very long. Mania feels like it's a good feeling. It's a high. You have all these thoughts, and you have all this motivation, and you have all these ideas. And so you might say, well, what's wrong with that? Exactly. Mania can be good if you recognize it early, and if you can channel its power into positive things. That's what I try to do with my videos and music and everything I do. When my thoughts are going so fast and I have all this motivation that I can't sleep, I stopped just laying in bed staring at the ceiling, letting these thoughts race wild, and I started just trying to channel that energy. The danger of mania is that if it's not checked, it can move into psychosis. And psychosis is a flood of dopamine in your brain that makes you lose touch with reality. I mean, in a crazy way, literally crazy. So, and it's horrible, it's horrific. You lose the ability to control what you're saying and doing, and you're scared, so it's negative, and you kind of have an awareness, but you can't control anything. So it's like the way I describe it is you're living a nightmare. When I had my first breakdown in Taiwan over 30 years ago, I kept kneeling down, and I just forced myself to kneel there, and I kept praying, let me wake up. Wake up, Andy, wake up. Because I thought it was a dream. So there's different kinds of mania, different levels or severity of mania. Hypomania is mild. Hypomania is in bipolar 2. Maybe you've heard there's bipolar 1 and bipolar 2. So the difference is the mania. In bipolar 2, the hypomania has not become so severe that you've had what's defined as a manic episode. I call it psychosis. It's where you have to be hospitalized. If you're hospitalized with a manic episode, then you're diagnosed with bipolar 1. If you're able to function kind of normally, then it's bipolar 2. So let me tell you some of the other symptoms. One of them that, besides racing thoughts, just all these thoughts and all this passion that feels larger than life. So it creates grandiosity. That means you think your ideas are huge, they're world-changing. And most of the time, you're the only one who feels that. Like reality doesn't feel that big. So that's when, in grandiose thinking, it's when the symptom of spending money frivolously and compulsively comes up. You have these ideas and you're like, this idea is going to make me a ton of money, or this idea is going to change the world, or this idea is going to save a ton of people. And so you just spend money because it feels so right. It feels so true. It feels so real. Other compulsive decisions that mania triggers are like moving. Just get up and move because you feel that it's the right thing to do. A lot of people, especially my mother, thinks that manic thoughts are revelations from God. So there's the symptom of when people think God is talking to them, or they're seeing angels, or they're conversing with angels. It's because these thoughts feel bigger than life. They feel at the extreme. So super spiritual is one of them. Another one is called ideas of reference.
Okay, stop and take a breath for a minute. The battery on my Meta glasses wore out. Goes out really quick when I'm doing videos. So I thought I'd take a breather and stop and take a breather and just talk on my phone, finish this video. I was just talking about ideas of reference being a symptom of mania. John Nash is the character that's depicted, played by Russell Crowe in the movie A Beautiful Mind. He gets ideas of reference from the newspapers and the media publications of the time that he believes are secret messages from the Russians. The Russians are communicating with each other, and his job is to decode the messages. And so his compulsion is he writes it down. He pastes up papers all over and literally goes crazy doing this. Ideas of reference can also include like religious themes, like God is talking to me through a movie, not even a church movie, just any movie. I had ideas of reference when I watched the movie Aladdin, the Disney cartoon Aladdin. Back then, when I saw him going into the Cave of Wonders, that was me coming into the world, and he couldn't touch any of the temptations. and he had to free the genie, right? That was my secret mission, was that I was being called to somehow free God. And that was my ideas of reference symptom. Another symptom of mania and hypomania is music in the brain. A lot of people talk about the voices in their head that they can't slow down. I believe those are thoughts. Some people actually hear audio voices. That's more a symptom of schizophrenia than bipolar disorder. For my manic experience, it's music in my head, and it just goes around and around and around. One of the songs I remember was Piano Man, Billy Joel, and the line, and he's talking with Davey, who's still in the Navy and probably will be for life. That line and that song went over and over in my mind. I didn't hear it. It wasn't with my ears. It wasn't audio. It was inside my brain, and it was torturous. Another symptom is sleep. You can't sleep because your thoughts are going so fast and you're so motivated. So when you do sleep, you have these super intense dreams, like you wake up and you're just going, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. I can't believe that. It feels so real. And then a couple days later, you look back and you're like, okay, was that a dream or did that really happen? It's so intense and it's so real that in your memory, it feels like a real life experience. So those are some of the symptoms of hypomania and mania. Racing thoughts, obsessive thoughts. It's also possible to have depressive mania. So you're feeling depressed and sad, and at the same time, manic thoughts going a million miles an hour. Some people have that. So I want to finish with, what do you do, right? Well, the answer, there's different answers because there's different levels and intensities of it. If it's so bad that it interferes with your functioning, like if you can't work, you can't do your family duties, you can't recreate, like these thoughts just never leave, and they're so intense, and there's no off switch for your brain, right? How do you turn it off? So if it's that bad, then you need help chemically to change the chemicals in your brain to slow down those thoughts. That's medication. It's called antipsychotic medication. That's what I take. If I don't take my antipsychotic pill, I don't sleep. And it's only a couple days till I'm either locked up in a hospital or dead. It's that bad. So antipsychotics can slow it down. For lesser mania like hypomania, mindfulness, learning mindfulness can help. Mindfulness is just the practice of taking time to focus on your breathing. So when I first had mania, a lot of people told me, man, you got to learn mindful, or you got to meditate. And I thought, at the time, I thought meditation was sitting with your legs crossed and not thinking, right? And both of those were impossible for me. I'm as flexible as a dry 2x4, and I knew there was no way I could just sit there and not think. Like, that was the problem. I couldn't stop thinking. But then I learned that that's not what mindfulness is. Mindfulness is the work of moving. Instead of trying to stop the thoughts, stop the river from flowing, you're directing it. So you're directing your thoughts to focusing on your breathing. The sensation of in your nose being cool, you're feeling your heartbeat, you're noticing the sounds, and you kind of have a narrative in your brain that says, this is what I'm feeling. You don't judge it, because judging it brings a reaction which triggers those thoughts. So it's learning to direct your thoughts to your breathing, and the breathing is at the core of life. So you're focusing on just living, just existing, just being, right? To be or not to be. That's what your focus, and you learn. And as you learn that, you learn to slow your thoughts down in that process. So you learn, you can't turn the switch off, but you gain control of the speed and the content and the intensity of the thoughts that are going in your brain. Sometimes the mania is just too strong, and you can't do that with just your mindfulness. That's when medication is a must. It's a necessity. The last thing I want to say is I attended a conference with a neurologist, a brain psychologist, and I asked him the question. He was a specialist on brain trauma, traumatic brain injury and trauma and PTSD. And I asked him, I said, okay, so I heard that psychosis, when psychosis happens, manic episode, when that happens, that it's killing brain cells. He said, yeah, it is. It's killing brain cells. That's why it's so dangerous. If you move into psychosis, you got to get on medication to stop it, or else it will become permanent. That's what happens when you see the quote unquote, please forgive me for this term, the crazies on the street, right? Many of them have had manic experience for so long that permanent brain damage has occurred. That's what's happened to them. And the first time it happens, or the second time, if you get medicated, you can stop that and you can reverse the brain damage. You can start to heal the brain damage. So I asked the psychologist, I said, what about mania and hypomania? And he said something that just blew me away. He said, any mania, hypomania, mania is causing brain damage. That's what it is. It's brain damage. So learning to recognize this is happening to me and I need to slow these thoughts down, or I need to get help, is vital for brain health. And that's where my steps of reach come into play. First, you got to recognize it. You got to recognize what's happening. You got to focus on getting help for mania instead of pursuing the thoughts that are driving you crazy. That's the tendency, is I got to figure this out. I got to fix this. I got to act on it. No, you got to get help for mania. Recognizing that is the first step. And then the other steps are what you do, how you do it. So I guess I'll finish with that is you're welcome to visit my website, reachandyhogan.com. And I've got my book, Love for Mental Illness, in there, and you can get yourself a copy and learn all the other steps of how to use love and the steps of reach as the healing method for mania, for depression, for OCD, for ADHD, for all of the above, all of the mental illnesses. Thanks for taking time to listen, and see you later.